Welcome to the Old-Fashioned Three. They've been around basketball from the Big Dipper to the Greek Freak, from Russell Celtics to Curry's Warriors, from Peach Baskets to Paolo Banchero. Here are Whitey Gleason, Phantom, and Jerry Reynolds.
Yes, that was that cat, all right.
If we had actual old fashions in front of us, we'd be raising them to the great Bill Russell, who we lost this week. And we'll get to Russ here on the old-fashioned three. Truly, I mean, even among the greats, he was elite. Of course, Jerry got to know him for many years. So we will get to the great Bill Russell. But we do have a couple of things we got to take care of first. First of all, what happened to Phantom, the original Splash Brother here? Your shirt's all wet, and I don't even know if that really shows. But believe me,
it doesn't show that much. No, Stones gave me a bottle of water to relax with, and I tried opening it, and it just exploded. So thank you, Stones, for that.
A bottle of like this water.
Yeah, that water. It's really tough to open. Yeah, that looks good the way you did it.
It's not carbonated or anything.
Yeah, no, actually,
okay.
I can't really explain it. Then it's just So it's a little bit of action, but I'm back.
Good.
I bounced back from that. I got checked out. I'm fine.
Yeah, and
so
Jerry, I have to apologize to you because my wife said you have to apologize to Jerry. I've been giving Jerry a ride. If the first week we did this, his car was in the shop, and I was happy to give him a ride. And it's like, let's keep doing that. But my wife, Sheena, says, you got to apologize to Jerry because your car is so dirty. It is a little bit. I don't know if you've even noticed, but I do apologize for escorting you around here in kind of a dirty car.
Well, your wife is obviously very nice and very observant. And
did you notice that as well, Jerry?
I really didn't notice the car being dirty. I couldn't see out the windows. I mean, my God.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. It's like I just assumed maybe the windshield wipers didn't work, or he did not know how to. Actually, if he'd have splashed water on his windshield instead of you splashing it on yourself.
Yes. So I should have gone out there and opened my water on his car.
But he's Whitey, so
we can't say anything about it, and still you get the ride.
Yeah,
so
and that's what I'm saying. So you can't say too much.
Yes, you're right.
I was afraid he might just pull over and say, get your little.
You going to come over next week in the dirt mobile and pick me up again? Yeah,
that's what my wife said. She said, "Poor Jerry has to drive around with you in that dirty car." And I said, "Well, he doesn't have to."
Oh, yeah,
right?
Ooh, wow.
I could have.
Hey, it's only the second week.
I could have driven like a mile and a half by myself, but it really does help me, riding with Whitey, even though I can't see out. But
keeps your thoughts
I want you
inside.
focusing.
So we get a little cross communication, and then get ready for the show, which is important because it's like things happen, like you whining like a little.
Well, whining, I was fine. If people brought it to my attention.
Really pretty disgusting.
It's because you can't look out the window and see the trees when you're driving over. You don't get on me.
God, I thought he was going to cry. Did you?
I did.
God.
Well, it's a good shirt. I mean, come on.
Jesus Christ.
When I got Wawa on my shirt.
Okay, well, I didn't
we're
bring
going to be all right.
I didn't pay attention to it. You're the one who pointed it out. I'm fine.
I was going to say we're supposed to be the old-fashioned three, not the recent softies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what that means, but I'll wear it. Yeah.
Boom.
Literally. There you go.
You saw Russell play. I saw Bill Russell play. I don't remember it. I remember him as an announcer and as a coach of like the Seattle Sonics and, of course, a coach of the Kings. I'm sure the TV was on, but I don't remember him playing. You saw him, and, of course, Jerry, you saw him and got to know him. What do you remember most about Bill Russell, the player?
Well, what I remember most, obviously, is the defensive prowess and the way he approached the game. I was kind of always a Wilt Chamberlain guy, Chamberlain against Russell, and I never saw either of them play in person. But I was always a guy who I liked Chamberlain in that rivalry, but you still had to recognize
he got his ass kicked
I don't
regularly.
know. I don't know why. I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was larger than life. He's a legendary figure. So, I mean, I fell into that. But so I always rooted for Chamberlain, and when he was on the Lakers, of course, I was rooting for the Lakers against the Celtics. But Bill Russell was that guy. I mean, if you're rooting against him, he's like the evil guy who's guarding the mountain. You can't get by him, and his teams always won. And if you weren't rooting for the guy who always wins, you really don't like the guy who always wins. So I was not a fan of Russell and the Celtics, while I respected what he could do.
Yeah. Well, I of course I was a little bit that way too when he was a player before I got a chance to work with him and everything. But because I was a Jerry West, Oscar Robertson fan, they were my heroes.
Yeah.
And of course he was the guy that eliminated
that squelched him all the time.
Regularly,
regularly squelched them all the time. But to your point about Wilt, I always remember him talking. Obviously, we visited a lot about that sort of thing.
Right.
And he said, "Oh yeah," I said. I really dominated Wilt. He said I held him to 37.6 points a game over his career.
That's good against Wilt, yeah.
But he said, obviously we won most of them, and that's what was all about, and that's the way he looked at it. But I mean, he never, never tried to say, boy, I could stop Wilt, because, but the one thing he did say, he said, well, he'd get his 38 on me like everybody, other teams, except that I played him straight up.
So one-on-one,
we said we never doubled him like every other team did, or give all the extra help. And if when you think about it, that's a factor right there.
Yeah, trying to figure out how great he was and what kind of impact he had. If you look at the numbers, I don't think that's where you go with Russell, right? Because I don't think the numbers do him justice. That said, some of the numbers, what did he average? Better than 20 rebounds a game for his career, and he averaged he had a lot of assists. I didn't realize till I looked.
Like 4 or 5 a game,
yeah.
Because he was a consummate team player. I mean, he's probably the greatest teammate that ever lived, besides being the greatest winner who ever lived.
Yeah, but Jerry told me a story yesterday about, of course, Jerry got to know Russ when they were on the Kings staff, and he has so many stories. And I know you've been making the rounds. You've been talking to a lot of members of the media about your time with Russ, but you told me a story yesterday about when Bill Russell actually decided he was going to show, was it Joe Klein and somebody, some post moves? And,
it was Joe Klein and LaSalle Thompson were our centers at that time, and Russ kind of got a little frustrated. It's like, I'm going to spend a day here, and I'm going to really.
I can't imagine why.
Why would?
Well, anyway, he did that, and then of course I was kind of helping with the drills and ball tossing, butt patting, the whole deal, and. So after the complete workout, and really, it was just kind of remarkable to me. And I always remember, and I told Russ after the workout, I said, Russ, if you really want to help the team, you'd come back and play. Because he was like 56 or 7 then, and he was so much quicker.
Really?
And livelier.
Wow.
You just, like, it was one of those, like, come to Jesus moments for me, almost like, oh, wow, now I sort of get it. And I always say the other story that always struck me is when he was general manager and I was his head coach at the time, he had traded for Ralph Sampson. And Jim Peterson for Ralph Sampson. I mean, fans make too much of that because Ralph was done, but so was Jim. So and they basically made almost the same money. People kind of
really.
Oh yeah, it wasn't much difference, surprisingly. But anyway, we were in his office, Bill's office, just visiting and chatting or whatever. And I've told this story many times, but here again is one of those memory things. He told Ralph, he said, Ralph, Ralph's 7'2". I think they called him 7'4", but he was 7'2". And he said, I want you to stand up and reach as high as you can. Well, okay. Ralph did that. And then Bill stood right next to him and reached up and reached right over the top of him.
Come on.
And I said to myself, now I sort of get it.
Some of that stuff's coming into focus.
Yeah,
what was he listed? 6'10", maybe?
6'10".
Yeah.
So I'm Samson. I'm like this, and then
Bill's like this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was higher.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
His standing reach was more than Ralph's.
Wow.
And I always said, I mean, and that's the thing about height. You don't reach here again. I'm as a really an expert in basketball, which of course I am.
Sure. Okay, you are.
Yeah, I've noticed over the years that you do not rebound with the top of your head. You rebound.
I tried that.
Although I've seen some King centers who have done that, and they popped it back in the hoop.
I've seen outfielders try to catch them on the top of their head too, but
it doesn't work.
It really doesn't work well. It's more with the hands extended, and there again that explains a lot, and when you look at great rebounders
combined with the quickness,
and just a quick length, and because it's not really a jumping expertise as much.
But he was a great high jumper too.
He was
he's 6'10"
for his time. Yeah,
he's 6'10", and I thought I was reading the other day that he jumped 6'10", basically high jump 6'10", which has got to be kind of like shooting your age in golf. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So, what do you mean you thought were you reading it, or you?
I was reading it, but with me, I was opening water at the same time. I could have been doing a lot of different things.
I thought I was reading.
Yes, I thought. Well, I just want to check with Jerry. Maybe I was wrong. Okay. So 6'10", he jumped 6'10". So obviously he had leaping ability as well.
Of course,
everything.
He was a great athlete. I mean, his legs speed and quickness, like I say, for his time, and no question. That the timing and all that was there. Just a great winner. And he's pointed out. He said, that I was probably, I would have had a lot of success anywhere I went. He said he
Right.
believed that, but he said I do think that going with the Celtics when they had all these great offensive players, which with Heinzen and Cousy and
Right.
Sharman, they already had great offensive players at that time in that league, but so he was the perfect fit to make them better, because they could score, they just couldn't stop people, and they got them out in the open court more, that sort of thing. So it was, a lot of times it's a little bit of breaks of the game, and of course Red Auerbach was the perfect coach for Bill.
Yeah,
and which you said many times.
You mentioned Cousy, one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my whole life. I think this was probably in the late 80s. I'm not sure. Cousy was on ESPN, and maybe it was a documentary about him or an interview show, and he was talking about the things Bill Russell went through in Boston as a black man,
right.
and the way he was treated. And Cousy was saying, looking back, I think there's probably more I could have done to help him with that. And he broke down in tears. And he just started sobbing, and it was just so sad for him to realize, wow, I really could have done more for Russ. So a great player, but obviously he meant so much to the game and to the country beyond that. And I just saw an interview with Russ that aired Sunday night where he was talking about meeting Jackie Robinson, and he said, Jackie Robinson knew my name. He said, I couldn't believe it. And he said, one of my regrets, Bill Russell said, and this was about 2001, he said, I met Jackie and I couldn't tell him how much he meant to me because I was speechless.
And so many people did that with Bill Russell. I was going to ask you, Jerry, you talk about Bill Russell saying he wanted to be the best winner of all time, and he felt like he achieved that. And I know that he got that other role, the activist role, whatever role you want to call it. Did he ever talk to you about how he felt, the impact that he had in that way, as far as being an activist and being someone who was on the front lines and experienced all this and then went out and spoke about it as well?
Not a lot. The only thing really in effect, that he would say about, at least that I recall, was that it was just a matter of what's right. Mm-hmm. He'd just say, look, that's the way I look kind of at the whole thing. It's just, there's a point where you're supposed to do what's right, and really most people know what's right, and there's things that aren't right, and people aren't saying enough
about what's not right.
What's not right, and I thought, that's perfect common sense approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously that entails a lot more than that, but I mean, I think that was the thing, in my mind. I mean, he truly was a man of integrity. Now you didn't always have to agree with everything, but he was who he was, and he's very comfortable in his own skin, and I mean, like I say, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, once we get through all the accolades of him as a player as we have, you can't, he's one of the all-time greats.
Right.
But I said, my feelings was I really liked him as a human, a person. We really had some good times. It was great talking basketball with him, his Celtic days. And he'd ask a lot of questions.
Really?
He knew a lot, about
like
my
what's
background.
wrong with these guys on this
Well,
team?
that. But I mean, even I know he'd go into, surprising. He went into my background and things, and knew surprising.
Wow.
Wow.
You weren't sure you guys were ever going to really hit it off at first, right?
No. I was kind of thrown on Russ as an assistant because, I'd taken over as an interim, even though he'd been hired, which I said before, they didn't tell me that. But the team actually did a little better, and I think fans wanted me to stay on board. And I was was about ready to take a job with Del Harris with the Milwaukee Bucks as an assistant. But then
Del Harris, a really good coach.
Great friend. But I didn't want him live in Milwaukee, and Miss Reynolds didn't either. And luckily, Joe Axelson had said he had talked to Bill, and they really would welcome me on the staff, And so I said, yeah, let's give it a go. And then the first month it was, a little strange. He definitely was feeling me out, I felt. But, once we got through that period, I felt like we really became close because, I mean, it'd be every day. He'd come to my office or I'd go into his, and we'd sit and visit, talk about the team or teams around the league and get thoughts or what about the practice, that sort of thing. But then almost always we'd get into, because I really wanted to know about his Celtic days and some of those, and some of the interesting things that I didn't know at that time, and certainly I know a lot of fans today would know. It's like, for instance, like in their preseason, he said a lot of times in those late 50s, he said, we'd play 12, 13 preseason games in a few weeks. We'd just go up the coast in cars.
Just pile in the car?
Any high school that could draw a crowd, any high school gym. And we'd play the Syracuse Nationals. He said we played them 10 or 11 times in preseason.
Oh, these
he
guys
said,
again.
and then, of course,
Yeah.
you'd play them 10 or 12 times in the season. And he said, I guarantee you, we got to hate those guys. And they hated us.
Yeah.
And it got pretty tense. But, it's the kind of thing you don't think about, where the league was at that time, to where, if you can draw 1,000 people, we'll give you a game.
Uh-huh.
And, because they just the league didn't draw well at all at that time, except for maybe playoffs or finals.
Well, to that point about how the league drew, there's a story, and this seems like, if you're familiar at all with the Kings and their history, this seems like, oh, yeah, this would be the Kings, who were then the Rochester Royals, and they had the first pick. And
Okay.
Walter Brown owned the Celtics and also owned the Ice Capades. And Red Auerbach apparently told the story that the owners of the Rochester Royals said, no, that's not true. But Red Auerbach said, we told them, look, we'll give you, if you pass on Russell, we'll give you more Ice Capade dates.
Yeah.
And doesn't that seem like, well, that'd be that franchise? I don't know if that's true, but Red Auerbach told us.
No, I understand that was.
Yeah, really?
I mean, that I mean, but financially things.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to
Ice Capades outdrew the NBA.
for sure.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
The NBA was formed as something to help fill the building for the hockey. Because hockey was the number one sport at that time in those arenas, so they were looking for something to kind of fill in the gaps. So, that was always interesting to me. It's like with the Bruins were a far bigger deal than than the Celtics until probably the middle 70s. You know, the Cowens-Havlicek days.
Yeah. Did you have Russell going one in your mock draft at that time?
At that time,
Yeah.
I had him. I got together. Yeah, he was head and shoulders above anybody else.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's not everybody saw that. I mean, reading back at the time, you can talk about how Auerbach saw it, and you were talking about it before, but not everybody saw that. Not everybody could project Bill Russell into being what Bill Russell was, and that's what's interesting is you miss on Bill Russell. That's a pretty big. But
But then
step.
you also had the Hawks at the second pick, and there's a lot of people say they didn't want to pick a black player there.
Right. They went. They got
so it
Cliff
was
Hagan, and they got somebody else.
They got Ed McCauley.
Ed McCauley and Cliff Hagan, I think.
Yeah, I think that.
Right.
And of course, they they were a really good team, but Ed McCauley is not Bill Russell.
No, he's not Bill
Right,
Russell.
right.
But
Was
again,
the
they
draft
didn't know
on
that then.
Yeah, was the draft televised back then, Jared? The NBA draft?
There wasn't hardly any games televised back then.
That's the thing. Yeah, there weren't.
Well, like I was talking, I mean, I started following basketball, as soon as as a kid. I always say the first basketball game I ever saw was the game that the movie Hoosiers was made
Oh,
about.
really?
The very first one, because Dad had just gotten a TV about a week before, 1954.
Yeah.
And it was Milan, Indiana, and playing Chris Pasadix. No.
It was at Oscar Robertson's school.
No, Muncie Central.
Muncie,
Excuse me, Muncie
okay.
Central.
I was going to say. I thought it was.
I knew you knew it. You were
Yeah,
scouting.
Oscar and them come the next
Yeah.
2 years as a junior and one. But anyway, they'd beaten Chris Pasadix on the way to the final four. But anyway, that was the Bobby Plump made this shot 32-30 to beat Muncie Central, whose leading scorer was a junior named Gene Flowers, who became my high school coach.
There you go.
Really?
And how big was the screen in there? 8 inches?
I don't know. It wasn't. I suppose it's probably 30 inches in those days. But you had 3 channels. And,
Well, yeah, of course.
and
you
I always
did. Yeah.
remember my dad.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
there's
you had
those
to
things
turn
where
dial.
I didn't. He said, son, come here. You need to watch this. This is something going on here.
Really?
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Because it's like which was of course very historical, and a lot of people today don't really quite understand. It's like in Indiana at that time was an open class, so all schools played in the state tournament. And Milan had 120 enrollment. Muncie Central was 2,400, and they. And I'll say
so
that
just
was
one tournament,
and that's
yeah.
what made the tournament. I mean, educators got involved in the early '80s and made a bunch of classes like most states, and now it's, it's like, the Larry Birds or the Don Boozies from little high schools really
if I'm not mistaken,
don't get to play against the very best.
Not the big guys, no.
If I'm not mistaken, John Wooden, who's from Indiana, right?
Martinsville, Indiana.
Yeah, and he had said the NCAA tournament should be like that. You should let everybody in. They'd never do that, but I always thought that was an interesting concept.
Yeah, I think it'd create a lot. Because in those days, for a lot of people that cared not a bit about Indiana basketball.
You'll be surprised out there.
But let me tell you something.
We're huge in Indiana.
You're going to hear it anyway.
We're huge. In the Midwest, we are huge because of you, obviously.
By the way, he holds the record baseball at his high school career batting average. The Indiana State High School baseball record for batting average.
What'd you hit?
Not state, just my high school.
Okay, so the high school
just
record.
not state, just his high
school.
school.
I started 5 years on the high school baseball. I played in 8th grade too. In small high schools, they'd give dispensation, and I wouldn't. So I started at second base when I was in 8th grade. But anyway, my high school, at least what I was told, this was 10 years ago, that I still had the all-time hitting record for the high school, 448 for 4 years.
448?
448 for a career?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Why aren't we reading about you in the MLB?
Well, I can tell you why. You played
Pretty
about,
simple, really.
Yeah, in Indiana, you played about 15 high school baseball games because of weather. And probably the best high school player in the state would be equivalent to the 38th best in the Sacramento area.
Okay, so the depth wasn't there, is what you're saying.
Well, I didn't know that. I didn't care.
Well, you don't care. 448's 448.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I didn't care about that. I was just wanted to say, something to do till basketball starts.
Yeah. What did you hit as a senior at Hohenheim Vallejo? Because I remember you had MVP.
3 something. I don't know. Not
3?
448.
Wow,
Yeah, I was in the
okay.
threes. I was a little tougher than put me in Indiana. I'm at 570. Come on. You're not getting me out in Indiana.
Yeah, you're probably right. Actually, I wouldn't. No, I have no illusions there.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah.
Can we ask you, everyone compares players this year or that year, and that's one of the things that we try to do on this show.
Yeah.
And I'm reluctant to do it with Russell because I know how I feel about Russell, and I know, his legacy is there's just no one that matches it. Can I ask you about a couple players that we would know, and you tell us, they were somewhat similar to Russ? I mean, just to give us an idea, like Tim Duncan, defensively, was that in any way, anyone, was it similar to Russ? Was there any that you would see, or was it just didn't match? The other one I'd say is early in as a pro, and especially in college, Anthony Davis. I know some people said this is almost Bill Russell-esque almost when he was in college. Any similarities there?
Well, I do think Davis more than Tim Duncan, in college. More college. I don't think you could extend that into the NBA, but as a college player, I mean, he really did dominate the game defensively, and probably, Bill Walton to a degree as well.
Okay.
That's the one I was going to say.
Walton,
Bill
obviously was a real dominant, more so than, Jabbar, Lou Alcindor at that time was just dominant both ends, but that's another story. But, so I think there's some, it was just a case where Bill was so unique and ahead of his time in that they didn't have players, that could dominate a game defensively, and I think he was the first and the best, and probably nobody has really filled that role since. I mean, you've got some awfully good defensive players, the Dennis Rodmans or whatever, and they do a lot of special things, but the game is such that the value isn't quite the same as it was at that time.
Don't people, Mr. Basketball, Jerry, don't they get too caught up in, you need a rim protector, and that's obviously important, but that's not. You need a defensive center's got to do a lot more than just stand back there like a hockey goalie. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a rim protector, I think, is what they call them now. But, I mean, to Jerry's point, I mean, it was maybe the first ever example of when fit came into play, because Bill Russell fit the Celtics perfectly, but he also fit what you needed to do to win. He made defense what you needed to do to win, and that's why I think still to this day he's the greatest defensive player that ever lived, because he's the greatest winner that ever lived, and that's how he did it. So I think, he just did everything. I mean, we could get a hybrid of people. We can take an Anthony Davis and a Tim Duncan and put some Bill Walton and mix it all together and come out with what Bill had, but he just had everything in one person, and he also had the mindset. he used it the right way. He's like, okay, I could do this, and if I'm going to be successful, then we're all going to be successful, and that's just ultimate. That's the ultimate winner right there.
Well, too, I think where he was unique at that time and would still be today is he could really switch out on guards. He was comfortable. I remember him telling me, he said, the only guy, he said, I just honestly couldn't guard and was scared of was Oscar Robertson. He said, I it just.
Because of that strength? I mean, that's the thing about Oscar, right?
Just skill.
Yeah.
He's probably the most complete player to ever play. Today, still. I'd still say that. Complete. No weakness. No weakness whatsoever. The fundamental skills were there in every phase. But that's what Bill said. Well, if you switched on Oscar, he basically just decided what shot he wanted, where, and how. Mm-hmm. And you just hoped he missed.
What a compliment that is, man.
Let me throw one more player at you. Again, we're just looking to get a point of reference for Russell. We're not trying to say these guys are better. On his best days, maybe Detroit days, was there something kind of Russell-esque about Rodman?
Well, and the fact that he really impacted the game defensively
and rebounding-wise, yeah.
He really. Of course, they had all the offensive players, and they didn't need him to score. And of course, in the same way with the Bulls, I thought he was a better player by the time he got to the Bulls, even though a weirder player.
Yeah, sometimes that goes hand in hand. You never know.
Yeah, definitely a weirder player, but he could. Obviously could guard just about every position except point guard probably, and he would have done okay on a lot of point guards. So defensively he was great, and of course rebounding was great, and allowed the Bulls to go small. That's why I always say, when they want to talk about the Warriors, if you want to compare what would Dennis Rodman did against Draymond Green, well, he wouldn't even been a triple single. He'd have been a triple zero.
Yeah. So Draymond says they beat that team in, 5 or 6? Or,
I think we decided that team matched up defensively with the Warriors as well as any team could ever do, right?
Far better defensively than the Warriors. Now, depends on the rules of the game. And here again, if they played with the 2017 rules, I'd give the Warriors a great chance. If they played 98 rules, I'd give them no chance. Mm-hmm.
So it's all generational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where are we with centers today? The evolution of the position, because it seemed like for a long time teams thought when they build their teams, they thought you got to get that guy, that foundational center. That's how you build a great team. Aiken and then Chamberlain, Russell, and then Kareem, and then Walton to a degree. And it's like teams assume that every so often that guy's going to come along. And, of course, we've seen great centers since, Shaq, Keem. But the center position has been de-emphasized, devalued because the game is so perimeter-oriented now. It seems like we're seeing a little bit of a renaissance at the position with guys like Jokic, Embiid. But where are we in terms of the evolution of the center position? Where does it go from here?
Is it evolving into being just a stretch four kind of thing? I mean, a Jokic guy like that. I mean, you have to they have the center attributes from the years gone by, but then they add something else. They add the 3-point range so they can space it. So it's different. You don't want to put a guy down on the block. You don't want to get him in the way of everybody else. And so I think it is evolving into something else. I think they're adapting and evolving into something else. But if Kareem came along, there'd still be room for Kareem. And I think Bill Russell, especially the philosophies that he embodied, I think people still have them. So there's still room for that. But I think it's evolving away from that right now. And it partially due, obviously, to Curry and the Warriors and the 3-point shots.
That's why, Jerry, I wanted really desperately to see the Suns and the Warriors in a series this year, because the Suns had the size, they had a lot of size, and the Warriors have always been able to take your bigs off the floor. I know the Suns were very confident. We didn't see it, but that would have been a real clash of philosophies and styles.
Yeah, it would have. I mean, I would have liked to have seen that too. Obviously, we didn't get to do that, but the center position is different now, and I mean, I think a center has to be. He can't be just a rim protector. I mean, and certainly Bill wasn't just that, or Wilt wasn't just that. They were, when you talk about the greats, they could do more.
Yeah.
I mean, Wilt led the league in assists one year, for God's sakes.
Mm-hmm.
So tells you a lot. But I mean, I do think you look at the like Rudy Gobert, he's considered the top defense. I don't believe that he is, but that's just, that's
because he blocks shots, right?
Yeah.
So people say, "Oh, look
He's
at that,
the rim
great
protector you
defender."
want.
yeah, and he does. He does protect the rim. I've always said he is a great defender, 5 foot around the basket.
Right.
The other 94 feet, he's not very good.
Right.
And so that's why, to me, a Marcus Smart or someone,
Right.
Draymond Green, guys like that can defend all over the floor are much better defenders. And I know that the basket's the most important part of it, but but if you're good enough defensively, they don't get there, and that's where, like I say, that's where the Warriors are good. And I've said with the Kings, being they don't have a rim protector. Well, knowing that you don't. Then if you pressure the ball, pick it up sooner, overplay the wings, maybe it doesn't get there. Now, if you want to let everybody drive straight to the basket, that's a problem.
That's when you need the rim protector. If you're letting everybody get to your rim. Yes,
you need
absolutely.
You need Bill Russell on that wall.
Yeah. That's there's a period this year where the Warriors, they really fell apart defensively. It's about time Draymond got hurt. They figured it out, but they were just getting killed at the point of attack. And not to get too involved in the X and O's, which, of course, we have no idea compared to Jerry about this stuff. But I think that's the most underappreciated aspect of defense. People don't understand, I don't think, the importance of pressure on the basketball. If you can get pressure on the basketball, you can throw, and Boston is so good at that last year, you can throw a team's whole offense out of whack. If you don't and you're getting beaten off the dribble, you really have no chance to stop the other team.
No, and I think, too, with the rules of the game, and we saw in the playoffs, officials, the more physical a game gets, the more they let go because you can't call everything.
Yeah,
all of a sudden that
was Chuck Daly, right?
Yeah.
We're going to foul him, and the game can't call them all.
Can't call them all.
Yeah.
And they'll finally, and I thought, the playoffs to me this year really reminded me of playoffs in the 80s almost. Where
I bet you like that, huh?
And I loved it because
you
baskets were earned. And now, players obviously today have some advantages. They carry the ball and things, and of course they need to.
The rules have been tailored to do what they want. It's for the offense, yes.
For the offense.
Yes.
But
that's your pet peeve, right?
Well, Jerry and I have the same thing, the old hesitation dribble or whatever that's called.
Yeah, the only thing to me is like okay, if you're not going to call it, then take it off. Don't have it as a rule.
You're right.
Don't say you can't have an interrupted dribble when you clearly have interrupted dribbles.
Mm-hmm.
Just I always say that and dislodging defenders on the post.
Yeah.
It's like if you're 4'10" and 80 pounds, if you're there first, accordingly to the rules, you're allowed that position. They can't knock you off there.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly they do.
They will.
Yeah.
And Shaq made a career of that, dislodging defenders. And it's like, well, that's a foul. Every time you do it, it's still a foul. But if you do it 100 times, then they say, we'll let it go. And, basically, Shaq is allowed to knock Scott Pollard around like a rag doll.
Right.
Okay. So now we know.
Yeah. Yes.
We know that's not a rule that's called.
No, for Shaq. That's the thing. It's not a rule for Shaq. It may be a rule for somebody else.
It may be a rule for somebody
That's the
else.
thing. That's what gets you crazy.
It seemed to me back then, we're talking about 2002 in there, it depended on where the game was played. If the game was played in Sacramento, Shaq would get in foul trouble, and then he would foul out, and everyone would go, "Yay, oh, boo, Kobe sucks." And I said, "Shut up. He loves this." And then Kobe would come in and he'd
score 60.
Yeah. He's like, "Great, Shaq's out of the game." But if the game
Kobe's
was
the one who got
down there, everybody in the Kings was in foul trouble. I mean, I know and I know that's to a degree that's the way of the NBA, and I'm not boo-hoo, but that really seemed to dictate how the fouls were called, is who was home, and I think that's still true to a degree, isn't it?
Well, I do. I mean, I think referees are human. I know a lot of people don't want to believe that, but
it's controversial, Jeff.
Hot take right
there.
Yeah,
wow. Ooh.
And they you can't help instinctively. I think they know. Do I want 18,000 people booing me on this call? Or not? And so I think they let some things go. It's just human nature to kind of let it, so the home team instinctively has an advantage. And, of course, it shows in home team records. Even poor teams, bad teams, win at home. I always remember the one year Dick Motta coached, and team won, I think, 24 games and 23 at home. So I mean, so it's
so it must have been fun going out on the road with that team. Like, we're going to win one game all year. That's great.
Of course, he had one of the great lines that year. That was the first year that they had Greg Lukenbill had a plane that they chartered. This was in the '90s, early '90s, I think, and they won one game on the road to Orlando, and he said, "Boy, if we hadn't had that plane, we probably wouldn't have won that one."
Was Shaq the hardest player to officiate that you've ever seen, or do you just think he was just so big?
So strong.
Yeah, you're not really buying that, are you?
Well, I think he'd be among them.
Yeah.
Really, because, I mean, he was so strong that he probably did get fouled a lot that wasn't called. And as also he fouled a lot that wasn't called. I mean, both ways. But he was he's a great player, much like a Wilt Chamberlain in his time was so strong that, that you just had a tendency to think, well, there's nothing to call there. He's not being bothered type thing. So I think that would be. I'm sure there's some others through the years, that would be pretty difficult to
When you talk about
defend.
dislodging people, I just flash back to the old days. Adrian Dantley, always watching the games, the early games, always as a guy who, was 6'5", maybe 6'4". He backed in from, 20 feet all the way.
He was a forward, right?
Yeah, he's a forward, huge, strong guy. But he got more free throws against the Kings than I think anybody in those years, and he would dribble the ball 10 times every time. He was the most hated guy in that place for a long
really
time.
Score, and and then later Barkley.
Yeah,
was the
Barkley
reason
did the same thing.
They changed the rule because you couldn't back somebody down more than 5 seconds, because it was getting to the point where it's like boom, 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 boom. Just back guys down, and it just took, became the game was really awful to watch, and so I think there again they, certain guys made a career of it for a while, and then. But it served the league better to get rid of it, that rule type thing.
I just always remember Dantley. Mark Aguirre did that too, I think, but not as much as Dantley. But I always remember Dantley backing everybody in all the time and getting to the free throw line all the time.
Did they get traded for each other? Or
I think they were connected. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like the out-of-bounds play that they used to have for Chamberlain back in the day where they'd throw it over the backboard. From out of bounds, and then of course he'd whambo it, and then they made it's illegal because nobody you couldn't defend it.
Yeah, I think one of the best rules the NBA has adopted in recent years is limiting timeouts in the final 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Just in terms, I'm sure from a coaching standpoint, it's not great, but just in terms of watching, let's get on with it. Because the final few minutes of a finals game would take. We're going to be here. There's a minute and a half left. That we're going to be here another 12 minutes watching. And I thought that was great because you just get on with it, and rather than drive people away with it's another timeout.
Well, and two, in my mind, is to heck with coaches on that. I mean, it's like, okay, most of them, a lot of times I know you're better off. Well, you ain't got nothing to say anyway.
Just let them play. They're probably smarter than you are anyway.
What do you do when that happens? When you really...
I got nothing?
Yeah, you just don't have much to say.
Well, sometimes you do. Yeah, it's pretty much that. Of course, nowadays, the coaching clique, 18, 20 people have a committee meeting out there,
right.
And they talk to each other for a minute and a half, and then they go in the huddle and say, go get them, guys.
Yeah, because they all get together out on the floor and then send one representative into the huddle and go,
you talk to him.
We got nothing.
We got nothing.
What do you guys want to do?
The fifth developmental coach goes in and he talks to him, and and it's like, really, is that what we're doing here?
Are you even a coach? What are you doing in here?
But I can say, I think quite honestly, I know it's about advertisers and stuff, but if you had very few timeouts, most coaches, it's the same for everybody. So if you had one timeout a half, I used to, I use timeouts, I think, for what they're originally designed for sometimes, is we didn't have any depth. So, sometimes
we're tired.
Catch your breath.
And so like Rodney McRae would always say, I got to come out. And I said, bullshit, you ain't coming out.
Do you see who I have to put in for you? You're staying in. Timeout.
Timeout. We'll call timeout. You can sit there and rest. But
would he sit there and tug on his shorts? Was that
he said, man, you got to get me out of here. I'm dying. I said, I said, I remember telling him once, I said, no, you're not going to die. Nobody has died.
You're really overstating it.
Yeah.
Well, when you look down your bench, who'd you have to put in for that?
I said, well, I don't remember anybody.
That's probably why he was out there.
Play, that was always a problem with weak teams. It's not really your starters. Usually you have some pretty good starters, but you don't have
a little bit of a drop off there.
A little drop off.
Yeah.
You had some NBA players, but not enough
Grand
of them.
Canyon drop off, And so
Evil Knievel. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I always told Rodney, we do that. We'd call timeouts, for Rodney. I said, well, just rest on offense. I mean, you can't shoot anyway, so whatever.
So you just have the whole team come over and just.
Well, I didn't care about them. It was for
Rodney.
For Rodney. We needed him on.
Did
the
they
floor.
all fan Rodney?
Well, they knew. I mean, how he was, our best all-around player at that time, and so you really just needed him out there to have a chance.
You did, yeah.
I did,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't, but he wasn't getting paid.
You want to take me out of here, coach? No, I need to win.
How common is it for players, typical NBA game, they don't even listen to the coach? I mean, sometimes you watch a game on TV or you're there, and there's a number of guys that aren't, especially guys that aren't in a game, they have no idea what the coach is saying. But how common is it for you watch a game and say, those guys don't even know what the coach is saying?
I think it's more common now than ever.
Really?
I really do. I think if you go back and look through, older times, that we're in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, I think the huddle seemed to be at least faking listening. And I'd tell guys that too. I said, I know you're probably not going to pay close attention, but fake it.
Yeah.
We're on TV.
and of course, I'd always say too, that goes back to college days. If something important I needed to say in a huddle, I'd say it twice. Because I just assumed it's like your young kids. They ain't gonna pay. They'll miss it the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
So open with it and then end with it too. So make sure they get it on one end. Yeah.
I kind of learned that from Dean Smith. I remember getting to know him a little bit when he was recruiting Bob McAdoo. Anyway, he always told me, he said, point of emphasis. He said on timeouts, always have one thing, point of emphasis that you really want to say, and make sure you say it twice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And said, and maybe 80% will get it.
Yeah. And have Michael Jordan on your bench. That always helps too.
And of course, he didn't have to get it.
Yeah. We will fan him. He gets the Rodney McRae treatment.
Speaking of coaching, and we were talking about the great Bill Russell, of course, and I neglected to mention the shirt that you brought in today.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Can we? This is tremendous. Back to basics, the 3 R's, Reynolds, Russell, and Reed.
The 3 R's, baby.
You made a T-shirt with Bill freaking Russell and the great Willis Reed, and you're first.
And he looks good.
Yeah,
I mean, look at this guy.
And as you know, Bill's 6'10", Willis was 6'9", and obviously I'm about 6'6".
At least, you got to be.
Yes, I'm about 6'6", and so anyway, that was.
And you're the one spinning the ball.
Yeah,
on the
that's a
finger.
good point.
Yeah,
that was
because Bill's a defensive player. He's not going to be spinning the ball.
I think they thought they'd sell a lot of them. I don't know if they did. But anyway,
I don't remember, but I would have bought one.
But I have one other shirt besides that one. I have the original, and I've told this story before. But I got the original sent to me. It was made, I think, in Salem, Indiana. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, and the guy running the T-shirt factory or whatever it was at that time was Mark Bird, Larry's oldest brother.
There you go.
Come on.
He says it's true. I don't know. I don't believe it.
And so he sent that to me, and he said, you ought to have the first one. And so I'd played a little bit with Mark, and he's quite a bit older than Larry and all. But so I thought, talk about irony.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, so did they sold those, or was that like a promotional giveaway?
They sold them. I don't know how many. They might have sold 5.
And you got a really healthy cut of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my check. Somebody said it's in the mail.
In the mail, yeah. I love your tie that you're wearing, red striped tie.
From 87 or whatever it is. It's in the mail. No, that is a good point. Come think of it, I didn't get a dime from me.
Oh man! Oh jeez. Wow. Well, maybe that reflects sales, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get negative or anything. But.
I mean, if they sold one, it'd be something, wouldn't it?
You were a season ticket holder, and you don't recall.
I don't recall that.
Yeah.
What year did that come out, Jared?
I think about 87.
Yeah, I went to every game. I don't remember seeing those around.
Well, you cheapie.
Well,
you didn't go into the team store, did you?
I never did. No.
That's so great.
I never left my
Want
seat.
somebody to give you something?
No, I
Jesus.
said, come on, I'm a season ticket holder. Where's my shirt?
I mean, basketball is your life to a degree, and you knew Larry Bird in your hometown, and then you got to work with Bill Russell and Willis Reed.
And
that's
that was
incredible.
Oh, it was. I mean, I was just.
You got along with both of them, right?
They're both. Oh, great men. I mean, Willis just salt of the earth guy, hard working. You could, obviously great player, and just the best. And he left late in that first year to take a head job with the New Jersey Nets. At that time, they were New Jersey.
Which didn't work out too well for him.
Did not work out too well, no. But you know, it's one of those teams that he wasn't going to win with, and he kind of knew that. But they paid him a lot more than as an assistant.
Probably, yeah.
So
did you ever give him a bad time about coming out of the locker room making 2 shots and then going back to the bench and getting all the acclaim and everything?
You know, I never did.
Maybe a good idea that you didn't.
Yeah. Well, I think and I mean I've heard Willis. I think he knows the irony there as well. Is that I got all the credit for.
That's Game 7, 60.
Yeah.
70.
70.
Yeah.
I think.
Game 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Walt Frazier goes off.
Walt Frazier was
36
great.
and 18. Yeah.
And really outplayed Jerry West, and he was the guy. And Dave DeBuscher.
What a team!
Guarded Chamberlain and had a 16 points, 16, 18 rebounds type thing. 6'6" guy. So, but anyway, no Willis. But he didn't make himself. And that's not. And that's one thing about Willis. There's not a more humble man you'll ever find than Willis Reed. And so that was. It's just like, hey, I wanted to be out there for my teammates, and I did what I could. It wasn't much.
He won as many championships as Will Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Right?
Too.
Yeah.
And that's a team that doesn't get talked about. I mean, we talk about the Lakers, Celtics, even Philadelphia, but the 70-73 Knicks. I mean, the way the 5 of them all blended together.
Beautiful basket. They were
amazing.
Yeah, the 5-man game, the ball moved. They were ahead of their time. At that, and beautiful basketball.
And they got Earl Monroe and Walt Frazier, and they were like, okay,
everybody,
we'll make it work.
Everybody said, how will they play together? And of course, they worked out great because Earl was really, besides a great player, but very smart and really adjusted to playing off the ball, which a lot of the ball dominant guys can't. But he did.
Walt Frazier was so good.
I got a comp for you. It's one of the things we do here. So you can go ahead, smite me down if you want. You're Mr. Basketball. When I watched, I saw Earl the Pearl. Jesus, they used to call him. It was Earl Pearl, we call it, in the media call him. And I remember the way he played. And there's a player playing now who, when he's really playing well, it reminds me of Earl Monroe. Maybe I'm wrong, but Kyrie Irving. I'm not saying he's as good as Earl Monroe, but there's some of his quickness, the way he moves.
The way he handles the ball. Yeah, his handles, I think, definitely do. Because Earl did all the spins and everything, but to do that, you have to be able to have incredible ball control. And I think Kyrie Irving, I know Steph Curry gets a lot of credit and should. I think Kyrie Irving might be the best ball handler in the league right now, and I can definitely see that part of it. I mean, it's a little different because Earl Monroe was 50 years ago, and the flair of 50 years ago doesn't seem as much flair now. But, yeah, I can definitely see that comparison.
Anything?
Not pretty good. And,
okay.
Earl was the first guy with the spin dribble.
Yeah.
There was a lot of controversy. Oh, he's carrying the ball. Well,
there you go.
Of course he was, really.
Yeah.
But it was his move.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
He invented the carry.
And now, that's, and it's a little bit like what we talked about last week with Kuzi, going behind the back and stuff like that. Well, every kid in the 7th grade could, like he said, every kid can spin dribble now.
Yeah.
But they didn't then. He was the first to really do it consistently and well, and he was doing it. I saw him play at Winston-Salem College at the Division II tournament in Evansville, Indiana, when he was a senior, and it was just like, my God, this guy, nobody can guard this guy.
Was it like an happening? Was it a happening?
It really
was.
Playing? It really was. Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's like, whew, this guy's better than all these guys, at these major universities. And he was, of course.
Yeah. Fortunately, Kurt, I am somewhat of a freak in the areas that you mentioned. As
Bob
Cousy
talked about
Cousy,
yeah.
Yeah, talking about his long arms and his hands.
Yeah. Like John Stockton, his huge hands. He could catch.
Well, show Jerry. Look at this. Look at that mitt.
No, yeah.
It's not John Stockton, but
no, really.
John Stockton can open water and not spill any of it.
Yeah. No, you're not John Stockton.
Yeah.
You're not even David Stockton, but.
Well, I mean, David did have some time. He did get to play, right? So, I mean, give him credit.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far.
Phantom used to like to hold the ball in one hand like the Hawk.
Well, because I want to be the Hawk.
Yeah.
Sure,
Hawk,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I'm a
Yeah,
showman. I'm a
that
showman.
That
You know
was
that.
The thing with John Stockton always amazed me. Just from close-up view, a lot of times the guys try to steal the ball and
he just hold it. Yeah.
Just hold it.
Yeah.
Because his hands were so big. Which for a small guy you didn't think about, but obviously that was a key to his great success.
I know some people that were up at Gonzaga a couple summers ago, and John Stockton is still involved, in the program there, of course, and they were playing pickup volleyball, and John Stockton played, and they said, man, he really wanted to win. So I get, like pickup volleyball is like, oh, yeah, he really wanted to win.
I don't have that ring, and I'm going to win. Yeah, I know.
Phantom, before we go, I know last week we kind of threw something at you, and you were nice enough to put together a list of, this is Phantoms, guys playing now that are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, wanted
some are automatic,
just a couple,
right?
I apologize for reading. Yeah, of course, LeBron and Steph, KD, Chris Paul, Giannis, Joker, Kawhi Leonard, Melo, Russ, Harden, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kyrie, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, and Anthony Davis. Those are the ones I have.
Check off on all those, as far as you know.
Anthony Davis, it was weird. I kind of like. He's out of mind a little bit lately, so I kind of put him to the side, and then I looked him up, and he's an 8-time All-Star and 4 times first-team All-NBA. And, that's the thing that, not in all sports can you look at their All-Star appearances and it makes that much of a difference because the other sports are kind of diluted. But in the NBA, it matters, I think. And those are the two things I look at right away when there's a guy you don't know about. Well, how many All-Star games and how many times was he All-Pro? And Anthony Davis certainly qualifies. I had a couple of guys that I thought
Jerry hasn't signed off.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry. I wanted to throw a couple.
I've got no problem with
okay.
that.
All right.
I think
couple
it's
of guys,
very solid work, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Very solid.
That's got to be something on that. I had Paul George right outside of that group, too, and also a couple of guys, too young, Luka and Jason Tatum. Kyle Lowry was one that I thought was interesting, and also Jimmy Butler. I thought those two guys, along with Paul George, maybe you can discuss those guys because they have credentials and stuff, but I didn't know if it was enough to put them in the Hall of Fame right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I don't know. I think they're close, and I'm not too totally sure on Draymond, but he's probably. But those guys,
I think
kind of
these days he's got those, and he was a core player on those teams.
Yeah,
That's
the
thing.
rings and all. So you probably give him where those guys probably you can't quite go there yet,
right?
And it's highly likely that quite honestly, probably Rudy Gobert is going to.
I had him in my next list, but I didn't want to mention him because I didn't think you'd like him.
Well, I'm not a huge fan, but I think it's really become the Hall of really good, and so he's really good and a couple-time defensive player.
But at one thing. But a guy like Mutombo gets in, so that kind of opens the door for a guy like Rudy Gobert.
Well, no, I think so, and I think his credentials probably are as good as some others in there. And I don't know if that's the way you want to judge it, but I always say there's guys, for instance, there's guys like, to me, Mark Price should be in the Hall of Fame. Kevin Johnson, I think, should be in the Hall of Fame. They're both probably better than Mitch Richmond in my mind. And,
wow.
And I'm the one that nominated.
Yeah.
Mitch
Yeah.
And I'm glad he got in, but I really think when you look at their careers, they had better overall careers.
Now, Rudy Gobert, of course, French. Isn't Jerry big in France? Isn't he?
Jerry is huge in France.
International sensation.
He gets mail all the time from Europe, but from France
at least
mainly.
once.
Yeah,
at least once.
Bonjour, Jerry.
He's a big fan.
You got like an autograph request? You got an autograph request from?
Yeah, they sent the pictures. The little
cards, basketball cards.
Basketball cards, tops. That was the first. When I was coaching, anyway, that was the first time they made a top. I don't know if it's tops or whatever it was, a hoops card.
Yeah.
For the entire league.
Yes.
Okay. Well, here's the. And I happened to be in Springfield, Mass, at the old Hall of Fame, and they had the entire display of basketball cards.
Yeah.
Of each team.
Yeah.
And by God, there I was.
So you're in the Hall of Fame.
That's what I said.
Another Hall of Fame for Jerry Reynolds. Bravo, sir.
I told my wife, I said, she said, bullshit.
She doesn't get real impressed with your accomplishments, does she?
No, she really did.
She's got to support
She keeps you down to earth.
She thought there was a little hokum there, which I had once I explained it, she kind of understand. And I said,
hokum.
I told her if I could be here another day, I think I've got that same sport coat that I was.
And that doesn't surprise me.
No, I was going to say, if I had another day at that time, I said, man, I'm going to walk in here and stand right next to that.
With this sport.
And see if anybody recognizes
They go,
me.
hey, could you move? I can't see. Yeah.
Well, I asked a guy that, I don't know if he's the main guy of the Hall of Fame. I said, now, is this display, is this just
permanent?
kind of
it's going to be there forever, right?
He said, no, this is what he said. He said, it's my understanding that it'll be here forever, because it's the first.
Oh, yeah.
Now, my guess is I haven't been there in the last, 30 years, so it probably isn't. They moved, but
we were there about 20 years ago, and I
didn't see it. Yeah,
you didn't see it.
I saw some cards on the ground in the corner. Maybe that was one of them. I didn't turn it over.
The dirty pricks. And they lied to me, baby.
They may have moved to the back room. Though.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know.
Well, yeah, it's probably there in a box.
It's in the storeroom. It's there. It's just in a storeroom.
Well, that's fair enough. Then.
Yeah, that's what he promised you.
That's basically counts.
I would still
even if it's in a box and in the back.
Yeah, I would still take that jacket and wear it back there.
Yeah.
I think
I'll go with you.
I think I still got it.
Yeah. I think we made a show trip. Let's go.
We did see a sign. Display currently in storage.
That's right.
And that's probably exhibit. Exhibit
this
currently
means
in storage.
Jerry.
That's probably
with my luck, it's probably they just lost that particular team and they got the rest of them up there.
We have 26 of 27 teams. The Kings are not.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened, but nobody cares, so it's okay.
Some irate fan came in and
tore
up all the Kings cards. I don't know.
So you used to be in the Hall of Fame.
I was briefly.
Yes,
I know that for
removed from the Hall of Fame. Sorry.
But the sad part, and Mrs. Reynolds pointed, well, get a picture. Well, at that time you didn't have phones,
Oh yeah.
So I didn't.
So as far as we know, that didn't even.
Because
really
if I had
no picture, it doesn't happen.
Well, if I'd had pictures, I'd have had them like life size.
Yeah. And sold them. Probably sell more than this shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, by the way, I've got those bunch of the team PR people gave me a bunch of those stupid. Fake cardboard people.
A whole
bunch of Jerry Reynoldses.
Yeah.
Oh, Stones one. Yeah, we got to have one for the studio.
Yeah, well,
I'll
gladly give Stones one. I'll give you 10 of them. No, I don't
put them out in Halloween and scare the kids out of the neighborhood.
I stuck them in my son's car and my wife's car. They threw them away.
Put one in his car. It's all dirty. No one will see it.
Be good.
They threw them away.
Yeah. They don't respect it all.
Wow. Man, who would not want to have one of those? Man.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, it sounded like quite a few people didn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's why they gave them to me. There wasn't a great demand for them.
You're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I think we end it there. Huh?
I think we got to. Yeah. I mean, he calls the guys dirty pricks. I mean, we got to get out of here.
No, I'm bringing Stones one. Yeah. I mean, he deserves it. I can't.
He works hard. Yeah.
I can't speak for the rest of the crew. I bet you guys.
If I wash my car, can I maybe get one?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
because I mean, at least they need to be able to look in and see the fake Jerry sitting there.
They'll think it's really you.
I could drive Jerry with the fake Jerry's in the car, and people go, "Oh my goodness, they've cloned him."
You could carpool. There you go. You got Jerry. Put him in the passenger seat. Yeah. Oh, I have Mr. Reynolds with me. Oh, go ahead, sir. Yeah, you're fine.
Now, if people have any questions for the old-fashioned three, do we want to
just keep them?
Okay, you don't really want to hear them, or
I would love to hear them, but they can call me at home. I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah, we answer questions.
We have a what do you call it? Stones. We have a Twitter account, but we also have a email.
Yeah, not to jump in here on you guys, but you have a email, oldolfashioned3, the number 3 at yahoo.com. If you have questions for the guys, please send them out. We also have a phone number, 916-367-4774. If you guys have questions for the guys, you can call, leave a message. We'll get to them as best we can.
There you go.
As long as they're good questions.
There you go. Well, that's why he gets the Jerry Reynolds cutout.
Yeah, well, he does just for that. I mean, we sound classy, didn't he?
He tried to. Did you notice he was
a little announcery guy.
He was.
I don't
Hey, fellas.
Hey, fellas.
He's not fooling us.
Here's some Miles Davis for you right now.
But anyway, I was going to say, bring on the questions. As you know, I do a little podcast with the King's Herald.
Yes.
Just a King's site and we take all questions. And I always tell the fans, any question, if you want to know about marriage, sex life, how to raise children. I got the answers.
All right. You have answers. Are they the answers, though?
Now, I'm pretty sure they're not the answers. I have answers.
Check those with Mrs. Reynolds first.
Well,
do you shout us out on their podcast?
Huh?
We let you shout.
Yes,
I
sure did.
That's the way Jerry rolls.
I sure did. I just did one yesterday, and I said, "Yes, sir. For those, this is an all love of basketball podcast, and it's not King centric as is the King's Herald,
right?
And so it's a different format, and as we can tell, it's a
Yeah, it's
Just
still finding its way. Yeah.
See, I knew I should have ended it when I said, "Oh, we should end it." And
yeah,
then
that's my fault.
Yeah, you screwed up.
Yeah.
Well, Stones wanted to get on. You know.
Well, it is important to let Stones, kind of look. Like he's like James Bond or something over there.
Well, as Stones would say, we'll see you next time on the Old Fashioned 3. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
Now bring on those questions.
To stay updated on the show, like and subscribe on YouTube, and all shows are available for download on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and of course at stonesradionetworks.com. Follow the show and the gents on Twitter at OL, Fashioned, and the number 3, at Phantom Radio 60, and at Whitey Gleason. This has been a production of Stones Radio Networks.